In this video, we're going to talk about the shocking history of accounting. I am always amazed at how many accountants out there know nothing about the history of accounting. And when they find out a little bit about the history, they're actually quite shocked. Because what I'm going to talk about in this video will change your perspective on your job. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 4 main ideas that you need to know about the history of accounting. The first idea is that accounting is really old. Historians have found records of accounting in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. Now that was a long time ago, and just think about how cool that is for a second. So in ancient civilization, you had hunters, you had farmers, and you had accountants. The most obvious example is taxes. So as long as there have been governments, there have been taxes. And whenever you have taxes, you need accountants to help you figure out your taxes. Another example is auditing. And many people think of auditing as a more recent development, but there are records of auditors in ancient Egypt and ancient Babylon, where auditors would come in and check the inventory in storehouses. And so accountants have been around for a very long time. The most shocking example of this is that some historians believe that accountants are the reason for the invention of writing. Now imagine this for a minute. Imagine you're an accountant and you're sitting in a room with other accountants in ancient Egypt. And you're sitting around and you're thinking to yourself, wouldn't it be great if there was a way that I could write down my financial statements? Let's invent writing. And the reason why historians think this is when you go back and you look at these ancient stone tablets with some of the earliest forms of writing, what you find written on those tablets are financial records and receipts of transactions. So not only is accounting one of the oldest professions out there, it was a force pushing society forward into these technological advances. The second idea is that accounting was practiced before the invention of money. So this is a very foreign concept for a lot of people because we're so used to existing in this very standardized system of money where we have bills and coins. But money wasn't always like that. When you look at ancient civilization before money was invented, barter was much more common. And even without money, you still needed accountants. Imagine that you are a wealthy landowner in early civilization. And imagine you have a field of wheat. And also imagine you have a friend who wants to purchase the wheat in your field. And he's willing to exchange some of his cows for your wheat. Now this is actually a very complicated transaction because you need to answer a couple of difficult questions. The first question is, how do you tell how much wheat is in your field after it's going to be harvested? So you can walk out into the middle of this field and look around, but how much wheat is really there? The second question is, how do you value this wheat? How do you tell how much this wheat is worth? The third question is, how do you tell the value of the cows that is equal to the wheat in this field? And finally, how do you create a document that reflects this complicated financial transaction that will protect the interests of everybody involved? So I think you can see these are very difficult questions, but I can give you a very easy solution to all these questions. Go out and hire an accountant. It solves all of these problems. So accounting is much more than just counting dollar bills and coins. An accountant is this role in society that enables these financial transactions. The third idea is that modern accounting started in the Renaissance. So when most people think of the Renaissance, they don't think of accounting. They think of great artwork, they think of scientific innovation, but they really should think about innovations in accounting and the creation of what we call modern accounting. In the Renaissance, there was two major inventions that changed the course of human history. And those inventions were Arabic numbers and double entry bookkeeping. Now, both of these pieces of technology were actually around hundreds of years before the Renaissance. But what happened in the Renaissance was these technologies became standardized and practiced throughout the business community. Arabic numbers is the number system using 0 through 9. This was such a radical innovation because in the business world, financial statements before Arabic numbers were written using Roman numerals. Now, you can imagine how difficult this was. This was the reason people used the abacus, because it's difficult to add and subtract Roman numerals. So what you'd do is you'd pick up your abacus, you'd use it as a calculator to calculate, add and subtract, and then you would write out the new Roman numeral. Well, when you start using Arabic numbers, you can just do the calculation right on the page. You don't even need the abacus anymore. And so this was a very radical transformation in the business community. The second invention was double entry bookkeeping. Now, double entry bookkeeping is a method of accounting where every transaction is recorded using a debit and a credit. And there's a whole lot of advantages to this, but the basic tenet is that it creates a very robust accounting system. In fact, this method of accounting was so effective that we still do accounting this way to this day. Think about that. We are doing accounting basically the same way that they were doing accounting in the Renaissance. And so these two innovations, Arabic numbers and double entry bookkeeping, are some of the huge innovations that happened in the Renaissance and helped fuel that explosion of growth and wealth and progress that we saw during that time period. The fourth idea is that since the Renaissance, we have seen incredible progress fueled by capital markets. Now, I want you to think about this. When you think about what's happened in human history from the Renaissance to today, we have seen enormous leaps and bounds in progress. We have seen enormous advances in technology, enormous advances in our quality of life, and all of this has been fueled by the expansion and growth of credit markets. And all credit markets are built on the foundation of good accounting. And let me give you an example of this. Since the Renaissance, one of the technological innovations that accounting brought about was the creation of what's called the joint stock company. The joint stock company is the idea that a business could sell shares of stock. So there's investors out there with money, and these investors can use their money to buy these pieces of paper that are shares of stock. And these pieces of paper give them the right to a percentage of a company and a percentage of the dividends of that company. Today, this seems like a really normal thing, but back then, this was a radical innovation. And what it did was it unlocked the power of capital markets. Because what's happening is that money is flowing from investors into companies which are sources of production and creating with that money even more value and more progress for society. And it's really pushing forward this growth and expansion of credit markets, which has driven these incredible advances that we have experienced since the Renaissance. You can see this through the Industrial Revolution, the technological advances of the 20th century, and even more recently, the incredible growth that we see in emerging markets. It's all driven by this growth in credit markets. So let me go through again the four main ideas you need to know about accounting history. Number 1, accounting is really old. 2, accounting was practiced before the invention of money. 3, modern accounting started in the Renaissance. And 4, since the Renaissance, we have seen incredible progress fueled by capital markets. My main point is this. When you look back over the course of human history, what you discover is that the accountant has always played an important role in society. And so if you're an accountant today and you're going into work, you need to realize how important your role actually is. When you're sitting at your desk and you're writing down financial transactions, what you're doing is you're enabling your organization to communicate with its shareholders. There has always been a need for good accountants. And these are people who've decided to be ethical and to stand up for good business decisions. If this video gave you new insight into accounting, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. And if you like this video, click on the subscribe button. The best way to supercharge a business is through accounting and corporate finance, and I release a new video every week, so come back and check out next week's video.